Okay, I might have more issues. This phone is heavy. I cannot. Okay, so you can see fairly well. All right, I'm gonna get started. Hopefully my phone doesn't fall. Um, Maybe I'll get some people coming in. All right, so I'm finishing up an order, a very large order. I've been working on this for quite some time for some bucktails, and I have to finish this. This is very important. So I wrap it up. I want everybody to see what goes into doing this. All right, where are my scissors? All right, cut that, throw it over there. All right, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab some glue. And I'm gonna put some glue on the back of this head where I just wrapped those threads. I'm gonna put a thin layer of this head cement. Put that down. Put a thin layer of this head cement all the way around the jig. I'm gonna loosen my vise, give it a turn, make sure I get this side real good. Get it not too saturated so that it drips. The idea is to get a thin coat so that you can get it tacky. And this is why it's so time consuming. I don't have my comments open or anything like that, so if anybody's in here, which it doesn't look like there is, I'd imagine most people are at work right now. This is what I do for work. So the allergies are absolutely killing me. And this also helps with not smoking cigarettes, something I've been trying to give up. All right, we're still in frame. That might be a little bit too much light. Let me turn this light off. Oh yeah, that's way better. Okay, so without that light, I can't really see, but you guys can see a lot better, or everyone else can. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some bucktail. Here we got, this is a, I'll move this out of the way. This is one that I've been using. I'm down to this portion of hair. So for bucktails, normally from here up is ideally what you want to use. Now the medium fur here, it has a different thickness, and it's a lot stiffer, coarser hair. It's a lot longer, but it acts different when you try and tie it up. And then from, you know, you have a small portion of middle hair, I would feel, and then this lower portion is used for something completely different, and it's not ideal for using for bucktails. So you kind of have to pick and choose and build around what you have. I have several of these bucktails, but in order to fill this large order, I've actually had to calculate how many I can actually get out of one bucktail. And out of this bucktail, I was able to get 8 bucktail jigs that are from 2 ounce to 2.5 ounce with a 7/0 and a 6/0 hook. So what you're seeing here, these are a 2 ounce with a 6/0 hook, and they're powder coated in chartreuse. And this is a blend of whites that I've made. It has UV clear, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it'll pick it up on the camera, but when I hit it with the black light, it's probably because it's daytime, but and the resolution of this camera, but it actually looks like patterns of gills. And in deep water, where I fish for these, where light penetration is not really good, the fish will pick up the ultraviolet light from the rods and cones in their eyes, and they will be able to see this in complete darkness. So that's why I do what I do. So now I've waited a minute or two, and this is probably good and tacky. So what I need to do is I'm going to grab some of this fur here. Now this is hard for me to do while I'm looking at the camera, but you can see this makes a ton of mess. So I'm trying to get it all done. I need a better workstation my bedroom because I have more deer hair on me. And it hurts sometimes. It will poke you. It'll give you like a splinter. If you cut them real short and they poke you, you're like, dang. All right, so I'm going to grab about that much fur or hair, whatever it is. It's hair. I'll grab about that much hair. All right, let me get a good grip on it. I'm going to grab my scissors right here, and I'm going to start nipping. All right, so there we go. All right, now I have some base hair. So the most important thing now, so since this hair is long, okay, but it's coarse and it's stiff, and I'll show you what it does. All right, so I'm gonna stack them like this, and then I'm gonna grip it. You gotta grip it really, really hard. I'm gonna pull all this stuff out the end, just like this. And this is quite a bit of fur. I might only use half of this, but I'm set up for my next bucktail now. Okay, so all the little loose ends are out. I'm gonna reach down the fur where I can tell the transition in the length of the hairs. So I want more long hairs than I want short hairs. So what you do is you reach down on it. And I mean, again, you gotta pinch really hard. And then you pull, and you see the short hairs will come out because you don't want those in there. Because what'll happen is it'll create a gap, and then your long hairs will fall out because they're not tied tight, because the small short hairs fell out when you threw it and it landed in the water and you used it a few times. So you want to get all those out. All right, and you can see that it starts to thin and spread. So this is why this is a time-consuming process, and it's probably going to take me a lot longer because I'm talking through it. All right, so now I can see that I don't really want to use about half of this. I want to use all of this. So I'm going to pull from this end gently, all right? And you got longer hairs. I'm going to restack my hairs like that. Then I'm going to use this tool, which is a hair stacker. I don't know if I'm using it properly, but I've been doing this since I was like 8 years old. Not on this scale or these large of lures, but I've gotten pretty good at it. So I'm going to put my fur in the hair stacker. I'm going to tap it so I can ensure that the longer hairs and the shorter hairs are all to the bottom, so they're all even. And then I don't know if it's necessary, but I kind of twist the hairs. It makes them smaller and hold together better, like this. You just kind of twist it up the end, just like that. And then I give it a good tap on the bottom. I pull them out, and you can see they're all together. Put my tool aside, and then you have to do the old switcheroo. So you kind of work your way down in the end. You get a good triangular pinch with your index finger, your middle finger, and your thumb. All right. You work your down the length of the hair, and I'm going to grab about right here. All right, and then I'm going to reposition like this. Okay. Now I need to flip it around, so I'm going to grab it this way, because the lure is going to face. The hair's going to go off the back. So this is the bottom side of the lure. You're looking directly at it, and so I don't want my vise to rotate, so I'm going to lock it down. All right, and then I'm going to get these little stray hairs that are all over my hands and my nice, neatly tucked bucktail. And I'm going to measure the length, from the tip almost all the way where all the hairs stop at the end of the hook to the base of the head, which is right here, as you can see. So the base of the head, and then the tip of the hook, the back end. So I have hair sticking out past that, but very few. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach up here. Now I know that when I move this back to here, now I've got like 1 inch to 1.5 inches. You don't really want more than that sticking past your hook, because what will happen is the fish will come in and it'll grab the hair, but it won't get the hook, so you'll get a lot of short bites. So to ensure we land and safely hook this fish, whichever fish you may be fishing for, we're going to make it to where that hair goes up to the base of the neck, where we're going to end the lure. All right, I'm going to pull my bobbin up, and I'm going to go very lightly over it the first time. And it doesn't have to be perfect when you get that first wrap, and you just want to do it lightly. And then the second wrap, I normally do 3 or 4 wraps like this, 3, 4, and you don't want to pull it tight. So this way I can reorient the hair, right? All right, so now it's all stacked. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my index finger. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my index finger. And I hope that's clear enough. I can't really see from where I'm sitting. That'll work. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the hairs. I'm going to kind of push down with my index finger and kind of mold it down around the sides. All right. So it's not just on the top, it's now all around it. And all that tacky glue that's there on the head underneath these hairs is going to grab them. And it's going to hold on to them, which is a layer of denier, which is your nylon braid, which is what I'm using on my bobbin to spin the hair and hold it to the hook and the jig head. So now what I'm going to do, now that I've got it, now watch what happens when I put tension. When I put tension, you see how that hair flares? That's why this hair, the lower portion of hair on bucktail, is not good for making bucktail. So a way to get around that is to kind of space your wrap and then pull down and back and then try and get it to the end. And these are loose wraps, okay? And somebody might say, you're doing it all wrong. Well, what works for me might not work for somebody else, and we all learn things different ways. So, all right, I'm gonna kind of lightly wrap back to where I started. So now that all that hair's captured, when I pull down on it, and I bear down on it. I mean, I put some tension on this, okay? But I always grab the base of the hair, and you'll see what happens when I see how all this is laying flat. Well, you can't see it from this angle, but from the back top angle, like, look, well, I'll loosen it up and I'll turn it sideways. But you can see that all the hair is laying flat. But watch what happens when I put pressure on it. See how the hair wants to stand up? It starts to pull. I mean, I'm lightly pulling on it. And the more pressure that I put, the further this hair will stand up. So we don't want too much of that. So what we're trying to emulate is a fish in the water. And so by layering our bucktails, so once again I grab the hair that I've put on here and I hold it tight, and then I bear down my bobbin with my heavy denier, white denier string, and then I pull. And I'm talking about I put some oomph into it, like I'm trying to see how the head flared like that. That's why I was telling you about that hair. So we're gonna have to. So now I'm gonna have to go into a different step. All right. So I'm just gonna let my bobbin hang. So it kept me from pulling this hair way up. I mean, it lifted it. You know, you see how it lifted it out. But it's like a mohawk kind of. All right. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my razor blade. And I normally use the magnifying glass that my phone is sitting on. It has like its own little arm. And I'm going to cut these hairs. I'm going to shave them down all the way around the head. And this is why bucktails are so expensive. Because sometimes you have to put in a ton of work to make one. But it makes it rewarding, especially if you're making your own when you catch a fish on. It's kind of hard to explain. When you catch a fish on something that you made, you know. And my grandmother bought me my first fly tying kit. She mentioned that the other day when I was telling her about what I've been doing when I saw her at Easter. And she said, you were using that stuff that I bought you when you were a kid? How long have you had that? I said, well, Nene, however long it's been, probably a year after that movie, A River Runs Through It. Brad Pitt, man, I wanted to become a fly fisherman, and I exclusively started fly fishing. That was my favorite thing to do, regardless of what I was fishing for, especially in the heat of the summer when the bluegill and bass are in shallow water. Bluegill are on bed, Man, I used to have so much fun. So now you can see that I've kind of cleaned that up. You know, I can't really get the camera to focus the way I need it to. I guess because I'm too close, but we're just going to roll with it. This is the first time I've done this. Okay, so now I'm going to put another layer of glue. And this is probably taking me 4 times longer than what it normally would to do it without trying to explain what I'm doing. So now I've got my head cement. Now that we've got that hair fixed, tightened, we're going to go ahead and apply our layer of glue. We're going to wrap so that when we're wrapping our denier, our fresh denier that we're putting down, it would probably help if I turned my bedroom light on. Ugh. Yes, that helps significantly. At least it helps me. Because I have a window to my back, which is not, it would be better if well, I don't know. I just need direct overhead light. I can't use my LEDs or my magnifying glass, or my magnifying glass, because my phone is laying on it. So I'm going to get some more glue. Kind of clean off the excess. You don't want too much because it'll drip. All right, and then I'm going to feed it some more until it's all soaked it up. Yeah, there we go. Now it's soaking it up. I just had to get a little more. All right, now the next layer is also going to be white. It's also going to go around the bottom and the sides. But this time we're going to use premium hair. So I'm going to put my lid back on my glue, put it over here. Put my old bucktail down. All right, and we'll move the jig out of the way. All right, so now this is a fresh bucktail, and I've been harvesting the tail, as you can see, the tail hair from here up towards the end. This is premium right here. Like the very end, that's like, it's like beluga caviar of bucktail hair, all right? And this is like caviar, but from something nobody knows about. All right, so, you know, you have to pull, all this is brown hair, which I use in different colors, but different color jigs, but I want these to be white chartreuse. All right, so I'm gonna come back over here. I'm gonna, at this break line, so about from this break line up, that's about the only portion of this hair that's ideal on this. But this is a very long northern bucktail, but these are $10 a piece. So from here up this side, all this hair, this is only hair that's really good on both sides for bucktail. But you still have all this brown that I don't utilize yet. You got browns and grays. So you can make quite a few different, what we would call natural colors, or bait fish. You know, they actually look like fish, but I can only imagine the time and effort. I will do another video if people actually watch this, but I can't see, well, I see that one person's in here. I don't know who you are. Let me see if there's any comments. Ding. Top chat. Okay, somebody shoot me a message. Whoever's in here, shoot me a message. That way I can see you. See who you are. Come on, where you at? Come on. All messages are visible. Somebody, no, Neil left. Okay, well, I'm just gonna keep on trucking. So, right here, I'm gonna decide to use this hair, right here. This is like the most weirdest part of doing this. All right, so now I got my scissors, and all the other hair wants to get in the way. There's no good way to do this. So I'm going to cut the hair as close to the leather, I guess you would call it, as possible. And I've got my stack. I'm gonna flip my stack over. All right, I'm gonna try and bunch it with these 3 fingers. I'm going to work my way towards the top. And then I'm going to pull out those uneven hairs, the most of them that I can. And the same thing applies with the short hairs. Now these are shorter hairs than the hairs that are closer down to the bottom, but they act differently, especially when they get wet. So by stacking your hair the way that I have been doing this, you'll definitely be able to see the difference that it makes in the bucktail itself. So, all right, I got all my hair stacked. And so I can see the termination point of most of the hairs is about right here, okay? So I'm gonna grab right there and I'm gonna pinch as hard as I absolutely can so I don't lose the good hairs. And then I'm gonna strip it of the short hairs the best that I can. All right, all the short hairs, we do not want them because they will cause your long hairs to fall out when they get wet. Because the short hairs will fall out and then there will be gaps in between where the short hairs were and then your wraps that you did with all that nylon are for kaputs because they just fall out. All right, so now that I've stacked all these, they're not even. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna pat them the best I can to get them even. I'm gonna reach down again, and the hair is just gonna be continuously falling everywhere. This is a very messy process. Now I'm gonna hold the end. I'm gonna go to the other side and grab my hair stacking tool right there. I'm gonna put my hairs in there. Pull that hair out. Pull those 3 hairs out. I'm gonna stack my hair in this little cone. Push it all the way to the bottom. All right. To ensure all the hairs are evenly stacked to the bottom, I pat it all like this. You know, it's not gonna hurt the hairs, but it's gonna ensure that the short ones and the long ones all have gotten even down at the bottom of the hair stacker. And then I don't know whether it's necessary to do what I'm doing, but it seems to help me. But I kind of turn and twist the hairs, and it pushes them together, so it makes them easier. They hold together, is all I'm saying. They hold together way better when I pull them out of the stacker. All right, so now my glue should be good and tacky by this point. So we got a nice flat end. All right. Bam. Turn my hand around, get back to that termination point. I'm gonna try it again. I'm gonna try and get some of them short hairs out, but I'm talking about I'm holding it as hard as I can. And see, we're getting a few of those little short hairs out. And if you kind of roll the pressure in your fingers as you go from one side of the bunch to the other, it'll help let those shorties go. And you'll only be left with the long ones that you want. So our hair's still stacked, still even. I'm gonna grab that 3-finger bunch again, using my thumb, index, and middle finger, and ring finger this time. And I use these 3 fingers on this hand, and then I reverse it like this. And then I'm gonna hand stack these because I want to get further along in the process. All right, so there we go. All right, now I'm gonna bring my jig back in place. Now, I've glued all this, and I make sure that my bobbin and my thread is all the way back. As you can see right here, this is where if you would use this jig, this little point here, you can attach a soft plastic lure to it. So that's where you want your line to stop. All right, so I'm gonna check my distance. Now these hairs I want to stick out further, but I don't want these to stick out as far. So I'm gonna push them back to where I get almost to the back of the rest of them. I'm gonna switch my position on my grip. All right, I'm gonna keep those stacked on top. The end of the hairs is at the neck of the head on the lure itself. Loose wrap. Loose wrap. Loose wrap. Loose wrap. All right, so now the hair's there. Now what I'm going to do is the same thing I did before from the bottom. I didn't tighten this stuff, but this, I'm going to put a little pressure on it, a little more pressure. All right, so now when I use my index finger, my middle finger, and my thumb, just like down, I can spread that hair. The other hair that's underneath it is not going to go anywhere, and you want to try and keep it symmetrical, kind of just wiggling it down. Wiggling it down all along the sides. It really helps build up the neck of the jig so you use less thread to finish it. All right, so now I'm gonna go back. When I got all the hair that I want where I want it, I'm gonna grab behind, we'll just call that the shoulder of the, that's not a good term, what is that? That's just a bait keeper, whatever you want to call it. So now I'm going to start applying pressure, but as you see, this hair, when I pull as hard as I can, it does not really stand up and flare like that other hair. That's why this is ideal for making bucktails, and the other hair is not. Now, the other hair can be used for making other types of lures, but I don't have any orders for those at the moment. So now I'm going to just wrap this. I'm putting a lot of pressure on this. I'm going to go all the way to the base of the head. All right, kind of start to build a little bit of a collar, because we're going to finish that with a different color. Trying to make sure you turn your vise to see it from different angles. All right, so now we're going to go all the way back to the back of that little point. All right, now you can see the side profile of this softer white. When it gets wet, it'll all stick together like a teardrop, and you can see that makes this more of a profile of a minnow or a fish. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to take some flash. All right. So this is flash. This is what flash is. All right. And so I'm going to grab three strands of this. And this is the color of this flash here is actually chartreuse. You might not be able to tell that in the video. So now that I got three strands, I'm going to try and make them all equal from end to end. It would help if I turned my bedroom fan off, but I would burn up in here. Okay, so now I've got, normally I don't have to do this because I'm not trying to do it on camera. I normally get it the first try, but I'll stack all these ends up together. So now they all should, well, I had three in my hand. Well, I guess we'll use four. Lucky person. They get some extra flash. All right, so now I'm going to take my flash and I'm going to bend it in half all the way, and so the ends are equal if you can see them in the camera. I'll make a loop, grab my scissors, cut those ends in half, grab all those ends, put it over. All right, we're going to look to find the middle of this group. So now there we go. Now I have one side, now I have the other. I'm going to bring the lure back into focus. All right, so we're going to have hair that stands over the side of this. I'm going to tighten my vise because my jig head starts to lean on me. I want it to lean. All right, so now I'm going to lay this flash so that it's all together like a silvery line, kind of, but it's a chartreuse silvery line. And you want the flash to go to the end, or a little bit exceeding, but you most importantly want it to all stay together. And that first wrap is one, and then you can tighten that first wrap down, and then put another wrap, one more for good measure. Now I'm going to grab all this flashaboo. All right, I'm going to cut it on the collar of the neck. Hold it where I got it. Now I'm going to rotate the vise like so. Okay, and I'm going to find the ends of my flash. I'm going to lay it in there the length of it that I want. So you see that the flash goes from here to about the end of the tail. And sometimes it's good. You can actually even shorten some of them and make some of them longer. It looks good. I'm not going to go into that much detail on this particular lure. So 1 wrap, 2 wrap, 3 wrap. Those are good tight wraps. All right, now I'm going to grab the excess flash, stand it up, cut it off, my scissors down, and ultimately I should keep this, but I'm not going to. So what I'm going to do, because I could use that for crappie jigs. That was long enough to use for a crappie jig. It was about 2 inches long. But so the next thing, I'm going to grab my razor blade again before I glue this head down. Ooh. What happened? My camera fell. I moved my vise. I tightened it down too tight. All right. There we go. She broke loose that time. All right. So, oh, she's out of focus. How do I hide that? Hide all. I don't even know if there is any. Nope, nobody's messaged. So I'm turning off the chat. All right, so I definitely messed up my camera angle. So I don't want the magnifying glass in view. This is a pain. All right, focus right there. Right there, focus. Okay. Or can you focus right here? You cannot focus right there. Come on. All right, that's about as good as it's gonna get, I guess. So now we're gonna take our handy dandy razor blade. Now that we've loosened up the vise, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna cut this excess hair off at the shoulder of the lure. I'm gonna kind of turn it that way. It helps me out some. I'm gonna just push in at an angle. Make sure you do not cut your wraps, because then you'll have to rewrap the head. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to finish it with a different color anyway. Well, we'll call this the throat. That's what it's called. We're going to call it the throat of the lure. Or the neck. Throat or neck. All right, we got a couple of too long of ones right here. All right, I got those. All right, so that looks decent. All right, next step. I'm gonna use some glue. You didn't expect that coming, did ya? I'm gonna use some glue. So now I'm gonna glue the head. Again, not too much glue, just enough to coat those hairs. So what that does, every time I layer it and I put glue, it locks those hairs in place when it dries. So, I mean, some of them are gonna fall out. I give them a good tug after I'm done. And normally I don't lose really any hair. Some of the ones that are just strays that are in there will fall out. That's why you see me flip the hairs after I stack them. I flip them with my fingers. All right, so that's got glue all over it. Put my glue away. Now I'm going to get some craft fur, and I don't like this stuff. I think that most of the time that this type of fur is useful for a different type of lure, but I'm using it as a filler, and not a whole lot of this is actually long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my tool. I don't know what it's called, but I'm going to push it through here. Just like that, and then I'm going to flip these hairs back, and I can see the long hairs. I'm going to put my tool down. I'm going to use use my fingers like scissors, and I'm going to grab all those hairs. I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm going to cut at the base of whatever this mat that all this hair is stuck to is. Get in there from right here. Okay, almost. All right, that's good enough. So now, this hair is similar to the bucktail in the way that you have to handle it, but in the way this is a more exaggerated. So now that I've got all the ends together here, and I grab all of them, just like this. So you can see the bulkiness of that portion. Now watch this. Now I'm pinching it, and I'm going to grab all this. And so this is what I'm doing to the bucktail. So all that short hair, you don't see much of it when, I guess, in the video when I'm doing it, but there's a lot of it that comes out. So this is what we're doing. We're defluffing it. We're taking all the short hairs out. We don't want those. We only want the long ones. So I'm going to reach down a little further on this, and then I'm going to pull some more. See how much small fluff comes out of this stuff? A lot. That's why I don't really like this craft fur, but it's very movable in the water. It flexes a lot. It gives it a lot. It gives the lure a lot more action. All right, so now we've got our glue, we've got our craft fur. Now because this stuff is so long, it's not really that important to stack it, because it doesn't really stack all that well. So you see how easy that stuff moves? All right, we're back in focus. Now we're working from the other side of the lure. This is the top side, the chartreuse side. So now that we got our flash in, we're going to stack this fake hair so that some of it's hanging out past the white. I'm going to kind of split it on the hook right here, like that. I'm going to pull my finger out, I'm going to reach around, I'm going to pull back, get the hairs where I want it. The length of the hair goes to the shoulder of the neck, and then I'm going to one loose wrap, two loose wraps, three loose wraps. Now I'm going to kind of separate them again to get that head of that shoulder here, this little shoulder tip here, so it's split. So I've got some on one side and some on the other. Now I'm going to put some pressure on this hair. Hold still while I tie you together. All right, see, now you've covered all that. You didn't have to trim it or cut any of it. You just cover it up. All right, so, all right, we're getting closer to being done with one. And it's been almost an hour to make one of these things. Now, when you go to the store and you see what they cost, don't complain, because you can physically see the work that goes into making one. And that doesn't include pouring the heads or painting them. It's a whole nother part of the process, which I don't mind doing. So now we're going to finish it off by putting some more glue on the head. Put some more glue on the head. All right. Alrighty, come on. Turn it. Make sure we get those locked in. Get all them hairs locked in. All right, I got a good coat on it. Put my glue away. Move the head out of the way. And we grab my chartreuse green bucktail. I'm gonna grab some of this furs right here. This is about the limit on those good hairs right there. We're getting close to the end, so I've been trying to conserve my hair by stretching it with that other hair. All right, I got my stack. I'm done with that. Put it out of the way. Put my scissors down. All right, we got all them excess hairs right there. There we go. We're gonna clean out. So if there's any loose ones at the end, I flip my finger on it, they fall out. And then I try and do that, the same thing on the other end, like this. And all those little short hairs will come out the back like this. I mean, there's different ways to do it, but for the most part, you can do it however you want, because some people are right-handed, some people are left-handed. And then I grab them tight towards the end of the bulk of where all the hairs terminate. All right, so I should have, I would say 90% of those little hairs gone. So all these hairs should ideally be, just kind of keep working yourself down to the end. So when you pinch it like this, you have a very little flare at the end of it. And then I'm going to put my hair in my hair stacker. All right, pat it down. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to get all the hairs in there down to the same spot. And then I twist it. I said, I don't know if this helps. It does me. It does me a lot. So I got my hair stacked. I'm going to keep it in the orientation that I need it. All right. I'm going to grab it out of here. And you can see all the ends are stacked really nice and neat. Work my way down to the end of them. Alright, so now I got a good grip on the end. I'm holding probably about a 1/4 inch in my hand. I'm going to turn sideways so I can see where they'll terminate. And that looks like a really good spot. So I'm going to split the hairs on the hook like this. You see the tip of the hook, split the hairs. I'm going to push down and I'm going to hold those hairs just like that, so that the end of the hair is at the termination point of the collar, or the neck, or the throat, whatever you want to call it. First wrap, loose. Second wrap, loose. I'm going to go a couple more wraps for good measure. 3, 4. All right, now I'll hold the hair on this side. I'm going to straighten my jig out, and I'm going to lock my vise head. All right. Now what I'm going to do is the same thing I did on the bottom, except for this time I'm going to pull the hairs down and around. I don't want to let them go because they're loosely in there. All right, get out of there. All right, so there we go. All the hairs are, I mean, the hairs are continuously falling out. All right, and I'm going to work that hair around and down on both sides. Check it. Okay, it's pretty symmetrical. It goes down to about the flash. That's your midpoint. The flash is the midpoint of the jig. I'll go back to my stiff holding position, and I'm going to pinch this hair really good. Give myself enough room on the bobbin to hold that thread tight, and I'm going to put some oomph into this. You're trying to break this string, but you're not going to, because it's like, you got to be careful because you might break your bobbin. I think you'd break your bobbin before. Your bobbin, if you don't know, is what holds your thread. And this isn't like sewing thread. This is like, it's hard to explain. It's kind of like braided fishing line. That's what it's almost like. It's like braided fishing line. I don't know what the poundage is on it, but it's pretty tough because I'm putting some oomph into it. As you can see, the hook's like starting to sag. Now we're up to the throat, the end of the throat, neck, collar, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to kind of go up and build a collar for the other thread that we're fixing to use to sit on. All right, so there. Now, a lot of people do this a lot of different ways, but I'm going to show you how I do it. It might not be, there's no right or wrong way. Whatever works for you. You want your lure not to fall apart. That's the biggest thing, especially when you spend this much time making one. All right, so I'm going to grab what's called a bodkin. It's really hard to see. I'm going the wrong way. Well, anyway, this little tool is like a loop of metal. And what I'm going to use it for is I'm going to lay the bodkin across the lure, and I'm going to wrap. I'm not going to wrap tight, but I'm going to wrap with some tension a bunch of times backwards, and then I'm going to come a bunch of times forwards. 4 or 5 times back, 4 to 5 times, 5 or 6 times forward. All right. Now, once you get to that point, I'm going to pull some string down off my bobbin. I'm going to let go of this. I'm going to hold this with my pinky and this here, and I'm going to cut between them. Put my scissors down, grab my bobbin, put my bobbin aside. Now, there's a loop at the top of the bodkin. And what you're going to do is you're going to feed that string through the loop in the bodkin, and then you're going to grab the base of the bodkin and you're going to pull the string you just put through that loop through the other string. And when you pull it like this, you pull it tight, the string's not going to come apart. Why? Because we're going to put another layer of glue. Who would have thought? All right, so now I'm going to pull that tight, grab my scissors, cut that off. Before we go on to finishing, one last time, I am going to have to cut this stuff off of the head. Cut all the flange, flare. All right. Start cutting at an angle. Trying our best to go at an angle so that we do not cut our thread. It's okay if it's not to the thread, because we're going to wrap above it. Oh, you thought we were almost done? We're more than halfway done, I would say. All right, let's keep going. All right. All right, she's looking good. She's looking real good. Another part of the process that is important when you're painting them, as you can see, I forgot to clean the paint out of there. But that's not a problem because fishermen deal with that all the time. I try not to allow that to happen, but it's not a big deal. Okay, so now what am I going to do? Oh yeah, I'm going to put some glue. So lock all those hairs in place, loosen that up, and we're gonna just dab this stuff on. We're gonna get a good shellacking. It'll thin out. The threads and the hairs will absorb in between it. This like a rubber cement kind of deal. It's not like rubber. It dries clear and it dries hard. It makes the color that you use on the head really shine. Get some deep in there. So you can rotate. Rotate, 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 rotate. Soak it up, soak it up, soak it up, soak it up. All right, put my lid back on my glue. Now, it really doesn't matter what orientation you hold it, but I prefer to have this locking mechanism out of my way. I prefer for it to be on the bottom so I can hold the vise like this, and I can rotate it by hand to see one side or the other. Now we're going to finish it off with this beautiful nylon. So this is different. This is a lot easier to break than that stuff. I mean, a lot easier to break. But it's beautiful, and it fluoresces under ultraviolet. Here, let me show you. Look at this. Bam. It doesn't even look like the same color. All right. I'm going to start it again. Here we go. All right. We're at the base of the collar, neck, throat, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to pull a couple of times, and then I'm going to start feeding this stuff back. And you're not going to get it all in one go. The ideal is to get the base going, and I'm using my thumb to roll this stuff off because it's very easy to break. I'm trying to keep my wraps as close as I can because this stuff is so small. You might have to go like 2 or 3 times to cover it. You know, and then you have those gaps where this string will fall into the gap of the bigger string because this stuff is a lot smaller in diameter than the other. And there's probably a better way to do this than what I'm doing. But it'd be ideal if you could buy multiple colors and that heavy denier so you didn't have to go over it again. But I think the finish on this thread, on the throat, neck, shoulder, collar, whatever you want to call it, looks a lot better. So, alright, we got a little bit exposed in the back, so I'm going to cross wrap it to make it like an underbelly kind of deal. And it covers it up. I'm going to come back from this side and do it again so I can get all of the white thread covered up. And then I want my throat, collar, neck, whatever you want to call it, to be completely coated in this pink. And I noticed that the glue that I put on from the time before, the last layer of glue, it squirts out in between this and it looks like the white thread, but it's not. And then you just clear coat it. So you don't have to use as much, but you have to rotate it a lot to see where the little gaps are to coat them and cover them so you don't see any white in the pink. I mean, it might look good if you like crisscrossed it. I made like an X pattern in the throat, so like part of it was white and the other part of it was pink. That would be pretty cool. But we've been tying for 52 minutes. Normally it takes me a lot less time to do this when I'm not got the camera in my way. So we keep rotating. Make sure we clean up all the white. I don't want to see any of that white thread. All I want to see is the pink. So I keep rotating and covering the little gaps that have white string exposed. We're going to make this like a parallelogram. We're not going to make it a flush straight head collar. Oh yeah. And each head's unique. Each bucktail is unique. It just depends on how you build them as to how they'll fish and how they'll swim. You know. Ooh, see how easy this stuff is to break? Good thing we got most of that wrapped. Oh, now I gotta re-thread this thing. Squeaky, squeaky. So you can use your bodkin for this, but I don't. I just I cut the ends and stick it in the tube a little bit like that, and then I suck it like a straw, suck the end of that, and it'll pull that other one through. So now that that's there, I just go back and continue doing what I was doing before everything fell apart. All right, scissors. Cut that first one. All right, because I don't remember which one of these is which. We're just going to go all the way to the back again. It ain't got to be perfect. We just want to cover it. You don't have to use many wraps because we've got all that white thread covered up with the pink. Those little spots that you see that look white, it's actually the tacky glue squirting up in between the threads. All right, so now rotate the head. You can see that I need to terminate these two white ones, or these two pink ones. And that's where it fell apart or broke on me. Sometimes they get the bobbin, the string on the bobbin gets stuck. And when I pull it, it doesn't let more string out, it just breaks. Ooh, we gotta get her done. I'm just gonna go ahead and do a little more. Try and get our pattern of our thread symmetrical. And like I said, it normally doesn't take me an hour in order to make one jig. This takes me about 5 to 6 minutes to make one. If I'm really rocking it out, and I pre-stack my furs and stuff, yeah, it doesn't take this long. Okay, we'll finish up that collar, head, neck, throat, whatever you want to call it. But this portion, you know, being a hot pink, it's pretty close to red, and it fluoresces. So we'll give off the UV light in the deep water where the rest of the light doesn't come. So if anything, we'll be successful. All right, now I'm going to grab my bodkin, lay my bodkin on the side, wrap my denier around it a few times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Pull the thread out. I'll grab my scissors. Put my scissors down. Put my bobbin down. Grab my thread. Put it through the bodkin. Don't miss. Make sure you check it. All right, where it didn't miss. Grab the tool into the bodkin, the handle rather. Make sure you're not grabbing any of the hairs, and pull it right back through all those wraps. Pull it tight. Let it go. Put your bodkin away. Grab your scissors. Cut that off. And we're pretty close to being done, except for we gotta put some more glue. Grab the glue. Now this time we're going to use a very liberal amount of this. Alright, so same thing applies. I'm going to start brushing it in, and it soaks it right up, and all those little pieces of glue that came up in between those threads will turn clear again. Alright, all of that soaking it up, get some more glue. And do the underside. Now this time you're putting a lot, and it's just going to keep soaking it up, so what you're going to have to keep doing is rotating it. And then also by rotating it, you can smear out those big clumps of boogery semi-dried glue. Flip my brushes. Yeah. All right, that is looking real good. I kind of like to try and get a little bit of glue at the base of the hair, around the head so it locks those in for sure, and then let it soak into the other ones. And you just keep rotating it, it'll keep sucking the glue up. I mean, you're not adding anymore, but it's got a really nice clear coat finish on it. Next step is eyeballs. So now I'm gonna grab my eyeballs. These are three-dimensional eyeballs right here. These are really a nice chartreusey black eyeballs. I wish the eyeball holes for these were a lot bigger, but it is what it is. And I do this the way I'm doing it so that I don't get the oils from my fingers on the sticky part of the eyeball. That's why I use this pokey tool to lift the eyes, to get underneath it. Just kind of stick it to the pokey tool. Right there. It's not gonna focus. Why? My camera dirty. Can't tell. All right, we're almost done. Guess what we gotta do? We gotta put some of this. Well, this. This is UV clear fly glue. Fly finish. It's thick. It's thick stuff. It's not runny. So I'm gonna get me about a drop of this on this brush. And I'm gonna let that drop form like that. There we go. And then I'm gonna dab it on the crevices around the eyeball. Now I'm gonna smear it flat. Like that. Coating the whole eyeball, covering the socket with a clear, thick glue. And then the base of the neck, right here, do that part. Flip it around and get another dab of this UV glue. Just a drop will do. Alright, let the drop form. And start patting it into the socket and around the edge of the eyeball. It doesn't take a whole lot. Then you're gonna wipe it flat around the head and kind of on the belly. And what this does when this stuff dries in the sun, or it really dries good in the sun, but ultraviolet light from a black light like this, yeah, my camera's dirty or something. But anyway, I've got two black lights. I hold one on top like this, and then I hold the other one on the bottom. You don't want to look at this directly. Oops, I can't put my hand on that. And you hold it there for about 30 seconds. And because I have two different lights, I don't know which one works better. I'll rotate the vise and then I'll do the eye from the other side. And the patterns and the whites and the pearls and the UVs on the bottom of the lure are pretty impressive underneath the ultraviolet light. It really looks like patterns on a fish. All right, she's probably good and tacky by now. All right, guys. Well, that took entirely too long. She's looking good, though. Probably not from the video standpoint, but she's looking good. She's finished. It's time to do that many more of those chartreuse and white. Yeah, I've got to get my tripod or something set up over there, because that is definitely way better focused than I had it in. You see how dirty I am? You see how much hair and string I've got all over me? It's ridiculous. I'm gonna have to vacuum or put something from like right here to just catch all this stuff. I mean, that's from making jigs. You know, that's from making jigs, all that stuff. I try to at least put it all in the corner And then I sit way too close to the TV so I can see the dolphins and pretend I'm there. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Anyway, for now, I'm going to go ahead and end this video somehow. How do you do this? Let's check and see. Live chat. Still, nobody chatted. Okay, so what is this? No, I'll just leave it as normal. Normal's fine. Normal's fine. All right, how do I end this? How do you get this to end? Yes, I'm sure I want to stop streaming. Okay.